All right, we are back on the Dictate the Game podcast. I am Eric St. Peter, your host. Today we have a few people hanging out with us from Dictate the Game. We have Dom. Good morning, Dom.
Good morning.
Good morning to Luke, of course, from Hume's Bakery in Essex.
Good morning.
And the afternoon, that's right. It's just barely afternoon there in the UK. Morning here in the US. So you can tell by the state of my dress and my haircut that it's very early in the morning here.
Very sexy.
Yeah, isn't it nice? Pelham Carter is here with us as well. Pelham was here last week on the podcast, but we didn't get really a chance to talk about all the stuff that's going on with him. But we'll be able to introduce him a little bit more on the podcast this week. So good morning, Pelham.
Morning. Hi, everyone.
All right. So some interesting things happening in the world of football outside of Football Manager. I want to talk about this. Our man, C. Kolasinac, getting himself in a fight in London.
Taking on carjackers with his bare hands whilst they were armed with weapons. Sead Kolasinac fought off two men after he and teammate Mesut Ozil...
So look at this guy over here. So you guys might have seen a little bit more of what was going on with this, but so this is a guy who fought off two guys who came up on a moped. Are we right?
Yeah, that's pretty mad. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty scary.
But look at this. I mean, so this
was targeted in North London.
Look at him go.
In the footage, the Arsenal fullback Kolasinac can be seen
jumping
out of a vehicle.
Look, he's getting ready for both of them.
Masked aggressors.
Yeah.
They pulled alongside the car on a moped before chasing.
You can see the knife in some of the shots as well.
After the attack,
yeah, there it is right there.
Has fled to a nearby restaurant.
Two-person on a
Jesus
motorbike,
Christ.
they tried to attack him, and they asked him straight away.
Like, I know people that live in North London, and that's pretty
then?
scary, because, you know, obviously, like, I get that they were targeted probably because they were footballers, but, like, you just all know people that, you know, would be on the receiving end of that and wouldn't be maybe as confident to do anything about it.
So, and they wanted to transfer him out recently, I thought. The Arsenal fans were calling for Kolasinac to be transferred out. Do we think now he should stay with the team?
Probably, right. Might be worth the wait.
Immediate club icon.
Yeah, to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if he got some sort of cool chant out of it and became a very big fan with the fans.
When they tried to attack him,
But I mean, he is a.
he's trying.
Luke, what do you think?
Luke, are you there?
No, he's. I think he's followed instructions and muted his microphone when he's not talking. But now
Classic.
he's muted to be able to speak. Or maybe he just passed out from the heat. He could just be passed out from the heat this week.
Yeah, it's been well hot.
And you've been moving, right, Dom?
Sorry?
And you've been moving, right, Dom?
Yeah. It's been obscenely hot. I think it was about 34 degrees the other day. And we decided stupidly to go to the beach and, you know, really embrace that sun, which was really, really good fun. But, like, it was just so hot, and so many people were, like, passing out from heat exhaustion and all this. We had to find some shelter. And actually, I saw there's a bar near us called Revs, or Revolution. And they had a deal going where if you were ginger, because of the heat, they said, come in and we'll give you a free cocktail. Get out of the shape, get into some shape. So, big up Revs for offering ginger people cocktails.
So, I mean, because moving, for me, I hate moving. I was in radio for a while in the United States, and you kind of move from job to job a lot. And and moving, I don't care if you're moving from downstairs to upstairs or across the country, it sucks.
Yeah. Well, I only moved about literally 10 minutes up the road. So it was just a bit of a slog trying to get everything over. And I'm actually going back over there today to finish it off after the podcast. But yeah, it's just like, I just want to get over and done with, and I can sleep in a bed that actually is my bed, you know?
Yeah.
Be nice.
Well, it's disruptive, man. Like human beings are creatures of habit. You got to have your stuff the way you got to have your stuff, man. And as soon as it gets disrupted, it really throws you for a loop most of the time.
Yeah, I've really struggled with, like, my routine is really messed up at the moment, especially because my new room doesn't have any curtains yet. So I woke up at, like, the crack of dawn this morning, and I was really, really, really hungover. So I'm in a very good. I'm basically the best person on the podcast right now. I'm going to be very quiet.
That's unheard of. That's unheard of. That somebody on the Dictate the Game podcast would be hungover. I can't believe it.
No, we're never. We're actually the most sober podcast out there. Oh.
Well, speaking of the podcast and everything going on with the website, I want to let you know right out of the gate, we're going to be talking about it a little bit more, obviously, but we have a really big announcement coming up on Monday that we can't talk about what the nature of the announcement is. The only thing we can tell you is that it's really something that we've been working on a lot behind the scenes. It's very, very cool, and we really want you to check out the website at 6 o'clock on Monday night, because we're going to have an announcement from Ryan as to what's going on. But it's going to be really, really huge. So definitely check that out. 6 o'clock on Monday.
You know, you say that we've been working really hard. I have done very little towards this so far. I obviously will be helping later, but Ryan has done so much for this. Like, it's a shame we can't get him on the podcast this week. I'm hoping he'll be here next week.
Well, I'm
so
hoping
he can talk a bit more about like how much he's put into this, because he's committed a lot to setting all this stuff up for Monday.
Well, and we're going to be able to talk about, we just can't talk about the nature of it now until the announcement happens on Monday, but after that, we're going to be able to talk about it a lot. So hopefully, next week on the podcast, Ryan will be on and we can actually talk about the nuts and the bolts of what's going on. But the announcement is coming up on Monday, and it's going to be cool. Like, we're all really excited about it. We've been waiting to be able to talk about it for a couple of months now. So definitely check out the website on Monday. And speaking of announcements, little tidbits from Football Manager 2020 coming out this week, where it looks like we've got, basically they took your article from the website, Dom, I got to tell you. And they, of course, they copied everything that you said and stole everything from you. And
so rude.
Very rude. And they didn't even credit you for it. They didn't say, Dom Lowe from this website, we're just going to rip his stuff off. But here it is, of course, right in front of me. Football Manager 2020, they had a wish list come out on Radar, Games Radar. But the interesting thing to me is they're speculating a release date, which is the first time that I've seen this so far. They're speculating a release date of November 8th or November 1st for the full game.
They've literally copied like a lot of stuff that I've said about the wishlist stuff. Like, I'm not saying they did copy the article, but there is quite a lot of stuff in there that was in my article.
I'm going to go through it. Because I think it's interesting. At least that, a major games publication, is right on the same wavelength as Dom Lowe.
It's almost as if I'm, not stupid.
It's almost as if you should be getting paid for something you're doing for free.
Oh, well, now here we are.
So, of course, something that Dom talked about, women's football, probably not going to happen because of the coding again. But that would be interesting. I mean, that's something I definitely want to see. But they're saying probably not going to happen because of the coding. Improved 3D match engine.
I don't think I commented on that, but
no.
That's only because everyone always comments and says we want a better 3D match engine. But I think it's not that bad. Like, it could be a lot worse.
Definitely could be. I mean, has anyone gone back and played any of the earlier versions recently?
Oh,
it's a shock to the system.
Oh yeah, it's awful compared. Oh yeah.
Also, reading the article, it says there's very little sense of realism when you watch the matches play out, and it's like, well, yeah, because it's a computer game. Like, you can't always expect it to be a carbon copy of a football game.
Well, I think people always want it to be FIFA, right? Or they want it to be PES. Yeah. I mean, but that's not what this game is about. The game is about the strategy. I mean, the match engine for me is fine. I mean, if I wanted to play FIFA and have Kun Aguero look like Kun Aguero, I would. I'm not in it. I'm not in it for that. We're real geeks here. I mean, come on. Improved assistant manager feedback.
I always complain about this, and I've said to you time and time again about this. About, especially at halftime, and about basically, like, you've got 15 minutes at halftime, and then basically you say one thing, and then they kind of either go, yeah, that was all right, or no, that was kind of crap. And I've always said, I wish there was a bit more kind of back and forth. If obviously you could streamline it, so you could say in like touch, or you could turn it off, whatever. But if you like, you could quite easily have a moment where your captain kind of does something to rally up the troops, or your assistant manager says, oh, maybe you should consider switching to this formation and all this. So I think there is a lot more potential for the halftime and the kind of feedback session. But yeah.
I will say, though, this is a line that you would never use in one of your articles. Make up your mind, ass man.
Ass man is assistant manager, just in case anyone was.
Well, no,
sure.
I understand, but I mean, would you go for that cheap of kind of a pop in one of your articles?
See, at Dictate the Game, we use really, really good sentence structures, and we don't slag off anyone, especially not on the podcast. We don't ever use any. We never say anything like that.
No, of course. Well, no, we never take the piss to anybody, of course, on the podcast.
No. It's actually a very safe space.
Yeah, a very. Oh my God, yes. If you want to have a safe space to be able to not be bullied, make sure you become a writer on Dictate the Game and then go on the podcast.
Yeah.
Spectate training.
Just become friends with Ryan, and
Yeah, right. So spectate training. I mean, this is kind of like basically to me somebody saying like, you made a lot of improvements last year, but now I don't want to use them, so kind of back off a little bit. So it's like, I don't care. Throwback.
I'm quite happy with where training is at the moment. They've done a lot last year, and I feel like if they did too much this year as well, it'd be too much of a jump.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with it. This is interesting, though. Throwback career mode, which I don't think that they're going to be able to do, but it's also going to put our man Steve out of business from the FM editor that we had on last week, is to be able to go back to previous seasons. I mean, I think that would be incredibly difficult for them to do. I prefer to have modders do it because I just think it's cool to see somebody else's take on it, but I do love those throwback databases.
That's the thing, though. If someone else is already doing it and doing it really well, they don't need to do it themselves. They'll not spend time developing that if they've got plenty of fans.
People, yeah.
More question and answer.
I've never actually done a historical team, but I've never taken over like Invincibles or like the old Barca teams or anything like that. Like I've never done it. I've just always used like either the base game or I've used a lot of like modded database, obviously things like the Writers' Cup, which kicked off this week, which was very funny. And I've also used. There's a guy who does what's it called, like league packs. His name's Clarkson, I think, and they're really, really good quality. I used them a lot for like San Marino and stuff, and he's really good.
Yeah, they're really good. He did all the European ones for FM19.
He did them for every FM ever, basically.
Yeah, but he used to do like Oceania, Asia, and all the different continents.
Really?
But he didn't do it it was just Europe for FM19. But if you go back, if you want any of the older ones, you can just export it across into FM19, and they work fine as well.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
More question and answer variety is, so I mean, I guess. Do you guys answer the questions from press like before and after every game when you play?
No.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
I get bored.
Yeah, I don't either. So I mean, I don't really care.
Oh, sorry, go on, Pelham.
I was just gonna say maybe like 50% of the time. If I know it's a big match or we've just played a big match, then I'll do it. But otherwise, that's what the assistant's for.
The ass man.
The ass man.
Yeah, get the ass man on the case.
Sounds like a new Marvel superhero. We've got
what kind of Marvel films are you watching?
Well, they're the ones that we have over in the United States. You might not have them in Britain. They're different. They're different. Youth team management. This would be interesting to me because if you're really going to start your journey of being a coach, right? Wouldn't it be cool to start off as a youth team coach and kind of work your way up that way?
I feel like it would be a lot more realistic if they allowed this, because, like, for example, Gareth Southgate only really had the under-21s job before going in to become the England manager. And it at least gives you kind of like a way in rather than just jumping straight in and being the England manager. I feel like it's a bit more realistic if people want realism in the games, and that's the place to go.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, that's a real, probably of all the ideas that they put forth, that was the coolest idea for me. And the most original idea, because you didn't do that in your article, did you?
I think I actually did.
Oh, did you really? I'm sorry.
It's all right. So I'm not salty. I'm actually not that salty about it. It's fine.
But you know what? I would be a little bit, because probably the guy who wrote this got paid.
Yeah, I'd love to get paid for my content, eh?
Well, maybe someday. Ryan will look and say, you know what? I'm gonna pay Dom. He's been here for 4 years now.
I've been here. I've been there longer.
Oh, Luke's back. Hey, it's Luke.
There you are.
Yeah,
finally. Were you just talking to yourself and we weren't responding? Or?
Yeah, I was on mute and I didn't realise.
That's so good.
He's like, why aren't you guys paying attention to me? I'm sorry. I thought. Never mind. Okay. All right. Good. Well, all right, Luke. So now you're here, Luke. So let me introduce Luke. Luke is here. 15 minutes into the podcast. Luke is here. Luke Hume from Hume's Bakery in Essex.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm not on mute anymore.
Classic Luke. All right. So, and now that we've talked about that, we want to talk about Pelham coming up a little bit because he's the second latest person to join Dictate the Game. I think Sam was after you, Pelham, but we haven't had a chance to really. We had Sam on. We got a chance to talk about Sam's background. We didn't really get a chance to talk about your background. So we're going to do that coming up in just a few minutes. But I want you to check out dictatethegame.com for everything football and football manager. We have new articles coming out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday, big day. Monday is a big day. The article coming out from Ryan is going to be big. Big announcement about what's going on with Dictate the Game. So you definitely want to check that out at dictatethegame.com on Monday. But we're going to have new articles Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We rotate. We have about 9 writers that rotate. So you're always able to get something that you want, whether it's real-life interviews, whether it's tactical replications for FM 19 now and for FM 20 when it comes out, different stories that we have going on. You definitely want to check it out every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, plus the podcast on Twitch on noontime on Saturday. You can watch the recording if you're watching it right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you check it out, the live recording, if you're into that kind of stuff, on Twitch next Saturday. But podcast released on Sundays as well at dictatethegame.com. And speaking about releasing things on the podcast, before we go on to Pelham, Dom, are we able to talk about the Dictate the Game Writers' Cup yet?
Yeah, it's going all right so far. We've finally we kind of given up doing the actual database, and we've just kind of explored the teams and turned them into versus competitions. We've had 2 games so far, I believe. I played Ryan on the opening day, and I don't want to spoil what happened, but it was a bullshit game. And I think Luke played Ben last night, actually. Sorry?
That was a bullshit game as well.
Yeah, so realistic match engines are what we're after. But no, I think they were good games. It's a shame we couldn't actually... what I was hoping is that next week, what we could do is have the highlights of the matches on in the background, like whilst we're talking, and have like the goals and all that. But as I was trying to export the highlights, I just got so many crash dumps and it just froze up. So I'll try and work on that for next week. But yeah, I'm going to try and create some sort of like compilations of like the best goals, and we'll do like a whole awards session and stuff like that. So it's going quite well. I'm enjoying it. Pelham, thank you so much for helping me try and sort out the database.
That's right. It's just a pain, isn't it? When you've got all the advanced rules on, it's an absolute nightmare. I wish I was Steve. Yeah.
Well, if you would like, Dom, I have this idea. So I'm supposed to play Guy later on. Why don't I do it on Twitch and then put it on YouTube?
Yeah, go for it. I think that'd be quite funny.
All right, so I'm gonna do it live.
Like live on the podcast, or are you just gonna kind of do it? I think you should do it live on the podcast.
Well, I can do it as a separate thing, right?
Sorry?
I can do it as a separate thing for content for YouTube, right? So, like, if I just, I'm supposed to play them tonight at, like, 6 o'clock your time. So what if I just broadcast it on Twitch, and then I recorded it and put it on YouTube? I'll just put it on YouTube afterwards.
Yeah? Go for it.
I mean, it'll be...
I might be about. I'll come along and say hello and laugh at you lot for playing, and it'd be good fun.
You can come on and do that, and you'll be able to see a guy get his ass whooped. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, because that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean...
It'll happen with your team.
I mean, to be honest, the fact... Because basically, the groups are Guy, Eric, Pelham, and Sam, and then the other group is me, Ben, Luke, and Ryan. So we've played all of our first games, and I'm quite optimistic, despite the results of the first week, that actually, because Luke's team was surprisingly good.
Did you use the score more? Did you use the score more tactic?
No,
Although Ryan will happily say that he was very fortunate with the result. So I put the when we had the stats of the game, and I put them in the chat and said, "I'll guess the score," and no one guessed the score. So I was robbed.
See that?
Yeah. Well, definitely. Yeah. Well, at least you're not bitter about it.
Oh, I'm not bitter, especially as it wasn't against Ryan. So But at least the only good thing about this is that at least everyone plays 3 games, and then they've definitely got a 4th game. So it's because whoever comes first in their group plays 4 from the previous group, and whoever comes 4th in, the other group plays first in the other group. So it's like everyone plays 3 games in their league, and then they go into a knockout tournament, and I'll do some nice fancy graphics for that.
Oh wow, look at you! See, now you're putting in extra effort. That's like maybe you're gonna get paid eventually.
Well, don't bet on it.
Don't bet on it.
When FM 2027 is coming out, you'll get a little kicker.
Maybe when I've got wife and kids, and I'll finally be like, here's a tenner, by the way, for your effort.
I mean, let's be honest. If anyone gets paid, it'll probably be me. To be honest.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You actually have a job though. I don't have a job. I'm a student.
You
So.
went to university, so I'm not stupid like that.
Fair
I've got a
enough.
career. I've got a career.
I'm working towards it. I wouldn't bash university too much. We've got Pelham on the podcast. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
And speaking of
We're
Pelham,
established it's not the real world.
That is
I've
very
got
true.
friends going to university next year.
Your friend?
Owen.
oh yeah, we're
right,
gonna
okay.
have him on the podcast coming up
point, yeah.
at some point. Yeah, he's an interesting guy. So, you know what? So that's a good transition into talking about Pelham. Pelham, I don't know how much you're willing to talk about, what you do for a living and stuff like that. But you're a lecturer at university, correct?
Yep. I didn't leave and enter the real world. I just went to university, carried on, and then if you stay there for long enough, they just let you carry on. They don't get rid of you. They give you a desk. So yeah, university lecturer. I've been doing that for almost 10 years now, like nine years, something like that, and just been playing Football Manager all the way alongside it.
Yeah, when did you get started playing the game? Because actually, as we're talking right here, I have your Twitter account, which is kind of where I think Ryan found you from. He was a big fan of your Twitter account and the stories you do from that at FM Tahiti. But when did you get started actually playing the game?
The first ever version I played would have been the Champ Manager 97, 98. And I'm old.
Wow.
So I was watching a friend play it over his shoulder, and he was playing as Leeds. And obviously that's no good for anyone. So I got the copy myself, back when they sold it in the big thick boxes. So I did that, then sort of played 99 2000. I bought like the Prima strategy guide for that, and that's the one that probably got me hooked. But what made it worse was my first year of university was when the very first Football Manager came out.
Oh
So
god.
2005 once had this kind of balance of I had a laptop that could just about play it and an insane amount of free time. And that was the addiction was set in then. So I played it every year kind of since, but 2005 was the one that did the damage.
Do you want me to make you feel really old?
Go on.
Oh, in your first game, I wasn't even born.
Yeah, I'd definitely
God.
be old.
Oh shit,
I was
that's
born in
awful.
2000.
Oh
Wait,
shit.
you were born in what?
2000.
You were born in 2000. Oh.
Oh man. All
I
right, so
can't really say much. I was born in 1997, so I'm not like much.
You're not old.
Older,
You're like
but-
2 years older.
I feel like the 2000 was like a special, like finding kids can now drink that were born in 2000.
I
uh,
don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's the scary bit.
I wasn't gonna do it, but I wasn't gonna do it, Pelham. But I'm gonna have to do it now. All right, so I'm 37. Am I still the oldest?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, you
I
are,
think I'm the
Eric.
youngest.
Yeah, Luke's the youngest on the group, and how old's Sam?
Why don't we bring back that old writer? I won't say his name, but Tom knows who I'm on about.
Oh,
Let's say his
Owen.
name. Yeah,
he was young, wasn't he? Yeah,
yeah.
but he was okay. Like he was just a bit young. I think Eric's the oldest.
Yeah, he is the oldest. Next, Pelham. Next, probably Ryan, actually.
No, Ehor, mate. Ehor.
Yeah.
Ehor's got kids.
Ehor has kids. See, I don't have kids.
Ryan doesn't have kids.
Ehor has
He doesn't
kids.
do anything.
Maybe Ehor's the oldest then. I don't know.
Matthew used to be. He's got 2 kids. He's only 23.
Who?
No, Matt Lawson.
Oh, wait, he's got kids.
Yeah, he's got 2 kids.
Wow. Oh, nice. Congratulations, Matthew.
He had
That's
kids
the-
ages.
Mind.
He had kids when he wrote for us.
Right, sorry guys, can we go slightly back on track? I feel like we're just talking about everyone's kids. Yeah,
it's like old
This is
home
the
week.
family podcast.
It's old home
Yeah.
week. Yeah, you remember Owen? Yeah, he had 2 kids, and all right. So Pelham.
I hope he didn't.
All right, Pelham. So you're really, I mean, we all kind of have our niche, right? You know, that we kind of write with for the website. You're, kind of rivaling Guy in the data analytics. I mean, it's some really heavy stuff. It's some really, really cool stuff that you're doing to be able to break down, I mean, through the FM Statistics Lab, really what's going on in the nuts and bolts of the game, which is really cool for me. So talk a little bit about what got you started doing that deep a dive into the actual game.
I think it's just kind of being a nerd. So for part of my job, I teach a lot of research methods and experimental stuff and statistics. So Guy goes in for the more the big data stuff, and I've been sort of trained to do it from the kind of experimental, lab sort of settings, so smaller data sets normally. So I'm just a bit of a nerd. I like doing the statistics side of it, and basically FM's just a giant horrific spreadsheet, really. Everything in there is a number at some point. It's one of those.
Sorry, that's a great quote. Football Manager is a glorified spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's just everything in there is, even the people running around, they're just numbers in a fairly depressing sense. But it's all in there. So you've got all the data you need to do stuff. So whether we're looking at what attributes we like, whether we're trying to do like Guy's Moneyball, where you're looking at the kind of KPIs to work out how to recruit next and get the best value, we're all sort of using numbers. And I thought I might as well just use the stuff I've been taught. So using the specialist software, using numbers, actually work out where the real differences are, where the real relationships are. Because it's easy to look at stuff and say, well, that player's got an average goal per match of 2, that one's got an average of 1, the one with 2 is better. But there's more kind of depth in there, and you can't kind of look at it from just 1 or 2 instances. You need lots and lots of data, and then you can pull out what the real relationships kind of are. So I think that's how I actually got involved initially. So there was an article on Reddit about different types of strikers. So this was what effect does finishing have on a striker? So there was a striker with high finishing and a striker with lower finishing being compared. So that article's on Dictate the Game as well, if anyone wants to check that out. So that was on Reddit, and I replied to that saying, this is really interesting, but you've got 2 seasons of data with 2 players. What you want to do is the same with tons and tons. So that's kind of what I've been doing with this, just using the data that's either already in there or setting up a kind of like a pretend experimental league where everything's kind of set to the same value, so you know exactly what's going on for every single kind of player and club in it, and then just tweaking and playing with it to see what's going on inside. So it's just the nerdy side of it that's got me into it, really.
So we're looking at, as we're talking, your latest article, and it's on Club DNA, which is something that I think is really interesting because I think it's something that's kind of spoken about a lot, or it's a catchphrase that people use, what's your club DNA? But you're getting into really how you're really able to figure out what that is from a statistical standpoint and use it to your advantage through testing and finding out, what is it that we're really going to be. So talk a little bit about the article that you had most recently, and what about Club DNA that you can kind of tell us, to make it more than a catchphrase.
Yeah, sure. So what I wanted to do was basically I like my teams to play a fairly kind of violent, aggressive hoofball. There's no finesse in any of my teams, as we'll find out in the cup. So there'll be, I don't think we need a compilation of goals from my side. It'll be like a compilation of red cards and like
I was hoping you were going to use this, yeah. Brilliant,
so
okay.
It's going to be that all the way, so that should be fun. But that's the kind of style I like my team to play. But I wanted to know, well, for that, what do I actually need to recruit? Because I know what the common sense side of it is. So I think it's like you're saying, Eric, lots of people use it and they say, well, this is what I want to be my kind of DNA. And there's lots of really good articles about what people have chosen in their attributes to do that, and a lot of it makes kind of fairly logical sense, but the game itself doesn't use that much logic all the time. There's what you think works and what's actually going on quite a lot of the time. So in this article I've kind of worked backwards from this aggressive hoofball. I've got a tactic set up where my team plays this reasonably well, So I've been looking at the actual matches, so I can see that my defenders are like slinging it long. I've got a target man who's nodding it down or scoring. I basically don't see my midfielders, the highlights at all sometimes. So it's working, and there's lots of horrific tackles in there, like amazingly horrific tackles. So I'm always like top of the table for fouls, yellow cards, red cards. That's one of my sort of my markers for success. And I've got my team doing that, so now I know that's working. I've then taken what I think the kind of good sort of stats that indicate that tactic is working out of that. So things like the amount of headers, because it's a very kind of aerial game, the amount of tackles, the amount of interceptions and things like that, because often I'm not playing with good teams. I'm playing against pretty bad teams who are also trying to long ball as well. So things like interceptions and tackle success rate, stuff like that, is all kind of, they're the nuts and bolts of making sure my team's actually playing the way I want it to. So I've taken these kind of end of season stats, and I've done this for about 9 seasons. One of the games where I've got 9 seasons of my team playing this long ball, taken all of these stats like interceptions and headers, but then I've also taken all of the attributes from all of my players. So every single visible attribute I've exported out, which is fairly easy to do. You just use the print screen option, save it as a HTML, and you can copy it into whatever spreadsheets you want. So I've got all the attributes, and then from there I've been able to work out which of these attributes actually predicts those stats at the end. So some of them are kind of common sense. So I think on the article I've looked at defense and I've looked at attack. And in attack, for things like goals, shots on target, finishing's really high up because you'd expect it to be. That's kind of common sense. But it's the other stuff that kind of creeps in that's not as obvious. So things like aggression keeps popping up. But for things like scoring goals as well, it's important there too. Or for defense, stuff like tackling doesn't actually seem to matter. It's positioning or jumping reach that's much better. Marking occasionally comes into it, but again, it's not the things you'd expect. So I used to spend ages just searching for defenders based on, heading, tackling, marking, and then pace and acceleration. Those were the ones I'd look for. And I'd try and get the best players with those. But actually, I don't, from my kind of DNA to get them to play the way I want them to, I don't need to worry about finding players with good tackling if I can find ones with good jumping reach and positioning instead, because they'll start to then get the interceptions, get the key headers that I'm using as my kind of markers for success. So I've worked all the way back really from the tactic to the KPIs to the attributes, and then I can just be really selective with my recruitment. So I'm doing it with I've applied it to a save recently. So I've taken over Warrington in that kind of, like the Defeat challenge where you take over a team that's just been promoted.
Oh, yeah, I know the one.
So I've done that. They're expected to be beaten by everyone. So it's one of those ones where it's like 2,500 to 1 odds to get the title.
Mm-hmm.
And because I don't have to worry about recruiting for the best of all the attributes, I'm just looking for mine. I've been able to actually put together a squad that's really competitive, but I've not got many superstars in there. There's no kind of like non-league giants in there or anything. It's just lots of really kind of terrible players, but players who do exactly what I need them to do when I need them to do it, and it's doing the job.
It's the Mourinho method, right? It's the.
Sorry, what was that?
I just said, how are you getting on in the league?
I think I've played 16 matches, won 13, lost 2.
Wow.
Wow.
That's not a bad stat then.
Yeah,
so it works.
It's working for this team, and I think the thing really helps with is like squad depth. Because if you've got the money, what you want are players who've got really good attributes across the board. If you can spend it, it's worth it. But if you've not got the money, then you've got to be really selective. So it now means my backup players can be terrible in lots of different areas, but so long as they've still got 1 or 2 attributes that are important. Like my defenders just need jumping reach, heading, and they'll do the job. Or jumping reach, aggression, heading, and positioning, and that's the package. And they're the players that not many people are going for.
Yeah.
So I can get them in, and they're happy to sit on the bench because they know they're terrible. I've not got any like prima donnas sitting there thinking they're amazing. They all know they're rubbish. So I don't have to worry about them being really upset that they're not playing every game. And it means that when I've got like 3 games in a week, I can rotate it, and the team's just as good as it would be without.
That's amazing.
Tons of amazing players.
It really is a different way to look at things. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you talk about it, and of course you're a lecturer at university, so I mean, you know how to explain things to people. And I'm listening to you, and I'm really honestly amazed at the depth and the consideration that you take into playing a video game.
Sorry, I missed that bit. What did you say?
Oh, I was saying that you know, I'm sitting here listening to Pelham talk, and I mean, he's a lecturer at university, so it's you know, obviously he knows how to explain things to people, but I'm listening to it, and I'm understanding really the depth at which you take, you know, a video game and you break it down to be able to play with it with that kind of depth.
But I think we all kind of do. We all pick our. It's like you're saying, we've all got a kind of niche. So for like me and Guy, it's the kind of stats number bit, and Sam does it as well, I guess, with his radar breakdowns of real players. He does that kind of stuff as well. But we all focus on something in the game, and we all put a lot of effort into certain bits, whether it's tactics, player recruitment, training, or the finance side of it. We all kind of tend to gravitate towards something. And for me, it's just because I think I said in the article, I don't tend to play with amazing teams, or if I do, it's towards the end of like FM when I finally got a team there. So I tend not to do the kind of big transfer stuff, and I'm definitely not doing like gegenpressing or anything like that, because the team will just die if they try to do that. So I'm almost forced into trying to scrape the barrel and get the detail out that way.
Well, it's definitely a very cool article, and it's definitely a great addition to our team to have Pelham on to be able to talk about stuff that in depth. I mean, it's just really cool to be able to not only see it at the website, but have you explain it to us on the podcast. So if you haven't checked out the article, it came out on Friday?
Yeah.
Came out on Friday. So check it out at the website at dictatethegame.com. So wanted to mention again before we wrap up that we are having a big announcement coming up on Monday. We cannot talk about what the big announcement is. We can only say that it is a big announcement. And it's Monday at 6 o'clock. Ryan's going to be doing an article. And it's something that is very, very cool that you don't want to miss. So definitely check out the website. Would you say, without saying too much, Dom and Luke, is this the biggest thing that's happened to the website?
What, sorry?
What, since we started?
Yeah. Is this the biggest thing that's happened to the website?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah, this is probably one of the biggest things we've done.
I mean, this is a really, really big deal.
We've been playing it down a little bit, but yeah, it is one of the biggest things like it's happened to us. It's like it's going to completely change everything that we do.
Well, because
take the game to the next level.
So I mean, because working with a football manager to do, you know, the byline and stuff like that, that was really cool, and that was a big thing, you know, for us. But that's nothing compared to what we're going to be doing and talking about on Monday.
Yeah, I think so. I like, obviously the football manager thing was really, really good. Like, it was really eye-opening to see like how far we've come, and I always like looking back as a football manager player. You know, you always look back at the statistics, and we can see all the statistics from the site and how we've progressed, and like the numbers are just absolutely incredible at the moment. You know, for the last 3 months we've hit basically 60,000 views a month, which is absolute. Like, that's the size of 2/3 of Wembley. Like, that's incredible figures, and like I'm very, very like the team we've got at the moment is absolutely fantastic, and I will sing praises about every single one of our riders at the moment, because we've just got a really, really solid group of lads that will, you know, really enjoy what they do, and I feel like it's a really nice balance of what we've got going at the team. This is Ryan, to be fair to him, like I've said before, but I'll say it again, he's absolutely worked his socks off for this. And as the technically, I don't want to call him a CEO, but he is essentially our like manager. He is our football manager.
I'm an assistant manager.
That's right. Don't make sure you mention Luke. Luke is the assistant.
I was going to say Luke's like the assistant to the regional manager. You know, that kind of like,
basically,
you know.
I'm the next important person in the chain, basically.
Right. So we're gonna.
I don't know. I don't know. It's not really like, but that's the thing about like, it's not like this like a massive hierarchy. Like, we've got some people that are quote unquote managers, but it's who's in the managers chat. It's like me, Luke,
Ryan.
I don't even know who else is in it.
Equal.
Yeah, is Ihor in there?
I think Ben's in there as well.
and Ben. And it's like, but actually, it doesn't even mean anything. Like, I rarely use that stuff because actually, it's not like I consider myself. I'd probably consider myself worse at writing than most of you lot. A lot of my content is a lot more kind of guides based at newer players rather than the nitpicky, gritty stuff, which I feel like you guys get into really well. But like, it's not like there's a massive divide between everyone, and it's a really nice environment. And I don't know why I've just started like going off on one, and I feel like I need some sad violin music in the background.
Yeah, I know. Like you're waxing poetic. You're really. I mean, I am. And if you're getting emotional because you're hungover, that's okay. Just go ahead.
No, definitely not the drink talking. It's like, you know, when you drink too much, you're like, guys, I love you so much. Like you guys mean so much to me.
It's like, I know that we're all going to be managers, but we're all kind of like managers, and it's really, really cool. All right. So, what did we learn today, guys? What did we learn today, guys? Before we wrap up.
I didn't learn anything.
Yeah, I don't think I did. Oh, I learned that Pelham is much smarter than me.
I learned how to keep my 10 meat top.
That's right.
Yeah, I was going to say Luke's learned how to use his mic.
Right. Well, you know, and this is only the 12th podcast, so you know,
you've only been doing this for 12 weeks.
Yeah.
I haven't been all of them.
No, you haven't, but you've been on most.
Wait, 12 weeks? That's like 3 months.
That's right. Wow. Yeah, this is the 12th podcast, and we finally figured out how to use microphones.
Wow.
Also, today, give a shout. I'm going to see Mark Benton today. So.
Oh, our man!
You're going to see Mark Benton today.
Yeah.
Oh, his team.
His team. He's playing Heights today, so I'm going
to. Oh, nice. Good luck. Tell him we said hello.
Yeah, tell him we said hello.
Can you wear a Dictate the Game, you know, like hat or something? You know.
I would if I had any, but I don't.
Yeah.
So...
No. That'd be interesting if.
Maybe there will be soon.
Maybe
there will be. But so Luke, do you have? I'll ask you this question: do you have like a plain T-shirt and a marker?
No, I don't. I do actually.
Yeah, then you can make a Dictate the Game T-shirt and wear it to the
first ever merch.
Well, maybe soon. I want to make.
Oh, you see, oh, be careful. All right. So Luke, do you have anything else you want to add today?
No.